All we have to do is take a look at the defensive holds of this particular team in GAC to see that there is definitely a problem with Lord Vader and his level 9 Datacron. Let's talk about how we beat it. I'm sure you, like me, have seen this team on defense at some point in either Territory Wars or in Grand Arena. We're always seeing the likes of Lord Vader, followed by Maul, and then a smattering of other Sith, Empire, or unaligned Force user units, such as Eighth Brother, or Canderous, or Piet, or Thrawn. We're seeing these combinations always in there with Royal Guard as an additional tank. Now, the problem with this set full of Datacrons is that there's a combination of things, really. Primarily, the ability to constantly reduce your cooldowns when you apply debuffs, and the ability to skyrocket your dodge and evasion chance, as well as being able to have a level 9 set for Lord Vader that can either make him tankier, make him hit harder and stack stats faster, or get to ultimate very, very quickly. Now, as we've seen just on the first page there, the counter success rate for beating this Lord Vader team is down in the dumps across the board. 30 to 40% success ratio, and we have got to change that. We still have another 2 months of this Datacron being live, so please, let's find out some reliable counters. I've got a couple for you, but we really got to go over the basics first. So, why is it important for us to take a look at the team? It basically boils down to what is on the team really dictates which counters we have available to us. Let me explain. The first character to look out for is Maul. With Maul on the team, we know that as soon as Lord Vader takes a turn, Maul's Frenzy is going to trigger and he's going to take a bonus turn. But it's not the first bonus turn that we're concerned about. It's actually the second, which is why we need to look at the rest of the team as well. To really have consistency in countering this team, we want to make sure that that second Frenzy never triggers. So we've got to look at the speed of not only Maul himself, but also his allies. If Canderous Ordo is on the enemy team, there is no way that you're going to outspeed him. And that's because of his unique I Like a Challenge. Basically, whenever an enemy with a dot is damaged, he is gaining 8% turn meter. Now, seeing as though our leader, Lord Vader, places irresistible dots on the entire team, that means Canderous is gaining 40% additional turn meter at the start. However, that's going to trigger Maul's bonus turn, and that's another AoE against enemies with dots, which means in total he's gaining 80% turn meter. Effectively, that means even a 200 speed Canderous has an effective speed of 1000 for his first turn. I think it's safe to assume that we're not going to outspeed that. Other things to consider are the likes of Wat Tambor. If he's in there, then he's going to take a bonus turn at the start of the match, and that's going to trigger Maul's Frenzy, which is going to guarantee that he'll get to the 5 stacks of his Seething Rage for his second turn before you can really get going. The last thing that we need to consider is the inclusion of any dark side unaligned Force users. That's because Lord Vader's leadership is going to be passing them an additional 40 speed, as well as giving them speed up at the start of the turn, which gives them an additional 25% speed. Effectively, that means a character that has roughly 320 speed on paper ends up being around 450 to 460 speed. That, however, can be circumvented with certain comps. So units to look out for additionally would be any of the Inquisitorius units, as well as potentially Mara Jade. Don't forget, we can also think about the likes of Admiral Piet, simply because he has such a high base speed. So, what are our available counters? When we consider Galactic Legend counters, well, obviously we could mirror it, but that means you'll lose out on putting Lord Vader on defense yourself. As far as Rey is concerned, the only really viable counters include the use of Dash alongside his bonus turn Datacron. SLKR has the likes of Daka Zombie with Wat Tambor to be used. We also have a number of non-GL counters, mostly revolving around the Empire cooldown decreased Datacron, and that includes the likes of Tarkin and Vader. Both of these counters are dependent on the use of Admiral Piet, which does split up your Imperial Trooper team, but if you're taking out this Lord Vader with the Datacron, I'd say it's worth it. The idea is to use it with a cooldown decreased Datacron and stack massive amounts of Emperor's Trap from Piet's unique, and then blow Lord Vader out of the water. So where can we use these? Let's first take a look at our options with Darth Vader. The premise of the counter is to be using Lord Vader's cooldown decreased Datacron alongside Piet to stack ungodly amounts of Emperor's Trap. After that, you simply take infinite turns in Merciless Massacre, building up to 40, 50, 60, 70 plus stacks of Emperor's Trap, and use Culling Blade on the enemy Lord Vader to kill him. There are two cruxes to this problem. One, how do we make sure we go before the enemy Maul takes his second turn? And two, how do we make sure we build up enough Emperor's stack so that we can yeet out Vader in one hit? When it comes to modding, you want to mod your Vader to be pretty fast. I would say around 300 speed is good. Try to get his offense over 8,000 and have a crit damage primary on the triangle. In my opinion, this is the most optimal lineup for a Darth Vader counter. We go with a Darth Maul lead, obviously we're taking in Darth Vader, Admiral Piet for the Emperor's Trap, and the last two slots are a little bit flexible. If you need more speed, I'd recommend throwing in either Darth Talon and or Wat Tambor, and then fill up the rest with just some Sith or some pre-taunting tanks. This setup is the best way to counter teams that have got a second unaligned Force user alongside Lord Vader. That's because we're gaining an additional 20% TM at the start of the round from Maul's leadership. Using Wat Tambor, we can pass weapons tech over to Vader, which is going to grant him an extra 15% TM as soon as Lord Vader takes his first turn. Under this setup, if you have your Vader modded for 300 speed at base, he's going to be operating at 360 speed before the additional TM, 368 if you throw in an additional Empire or Sith character, or 376 if you use Emperor Palpatine as the fifth. If we apply Darth Maul's 20% bonus TM to that speed, we're getting an effective speed of 450 for Darth Vader's first turn, and using Wat Tambor with the weapons tech puts him at a blistering fast 554 after Lord Vader goes. I would only recommend using Wat Tambor if you absolutely need it for the additional 15% TM. To calculate your Darth Vader's speed, simply divide his speed after his unique, in this case 360, by 0.8 if you're using Darth Maul lead, or 0.65 if you're using Darth Maul and Wat Tambor. Alright guys, let's just check it out in practice. So over here on the left we've got Defender's setup. He's using Lord Vader with Maul here on defense. He's thrown in Piet, Royal Guard and Vader. Now in GAC and Territory War, unlikely that you'll see Piet. You'll most likely see an unaligned Darkside Force user or Canderous or both. But let's just use this as a for instance. So let's check out the speed of his characters. Again, we want to make sure Maul doesn't get a second turn, triggering that second frenzy. 344, that's essentially 384 speed on his Piet. We don't need to worry about that because we know our Vader is over 450. His Darth Maul over here is a Darkside Unaligned Force user. He's gaining 40 speed from Lord Vader's leadership. That puts him at, what, 355? Let's get a calculator out real quick. So, if he has got 355 speed, he's gaining speed up. That essentially puts him at 355 times 1.25, 25% additional speed, puts him at 443 speed. Now we know Vader is going to be about 450 in our setup. But let's use this as an example. We'll go in here, and the setup that I'm using is a Darth Maul lead with Vader over here. So our Vader is 302 speed right now. And we are running with the likes of Maul and Piet. Okay, so from Vader's unique, we start off with 302 speed. We're gaining 8 from Darth Maul, 16 from Darth Vader, 8 from Piet, 8 from Talon, and 16 from Palpatine. Yeah, that puts us at 358. Talon is also passing us 20 speed. Okay, that puts us at 378. As we're not using Wat Tambor in this setup, we divide that by 0.8. 472 speed. So we know we're definitely going to be faster. Let's get into the battle then. The next part is the nuance of making sure that we stack up enough stacks of Emperor's Trap. But let's see how it goes in practice. Cross our fingers here. There comes the crush. Maul will trigger. And we should get a turn with Vader. From here, we go into Merciless Massacre. We're going to target Maul. We're going to use Crush. And then what we want to do is just do 2 lots of basic. 1 on Royal Guard and 1 on their Lord Vader, and then back into Merciless. Whenever you have the opportunity to go back into Merciless, do it. And then it's the same setup. Crush on Maul, basic on Royal Guard, basic on Vader, and back into Merciless Massacre. And we're going to do this until we stack up enough Emperor's Trap. I did a boo-boo there. I did not I did not use the crush on the right person. So that is unfortunate, but we will recover. Not an ideal scenario. This is what happens when you try and record and do a video at the same time. So crush on Maul. You don't want to get hit by that counter-attack, essentially. Get that. Get that. Lovely. You should land most of your debuffs once you start stacking Emperor's Trap, because that's giving us 8% offense and 8% potency per stack. So at 20 stacks there, we're gaining 160 offense, 160% offense, and 160% potency. So we should be landing every single debuff. Now, obviously, there is an opportunity for them to resist a debuff, 15% chance flat. We can't account for that. We can't outmod that. It just happens. But we just keep on doing this until we can't anymore. We're at 25 stacks currently, and that is nowhere near enough. We need to be going sky high right now. We want to aim for at least 50. Otherwise, we just won't have the damage to kill Lord Vader. Let's keep on going. So Maul is about to die. That makes things a little bit trickier because we lose an additional unit that we land debuffs on. Let's see if we get the ability block here. Lovely. That will reset our cooldowns. This is unfortunate, but we have to do it. There we go. There we go. 3 left. I'm going to have to do another crush here. And then cycle back round. We're going to have to go crush and hope for a bunch of debuffs. Beautiful. Yeah, it's basic here. And basic there. Beautiful. And back into it. So we're at 44 stacks right now. It's still not enough. Now in a situation like this, the most important thing that we can do is make sure we get back around to Merciless Massacre. If I basic Piet here, he's 100% going to die. So I'm actually going to force Crush. And that will give us round. We're at 48 stacks right now. So at this point, I would say we are, because of the status of his allies, we're looking at having to crush soon. Having to cull soon, apologies. So we're at 50 here. If we really, really want to make sure that we get as much stacks as possible, we will bounce around a little bit here. So we'll do a basic on Piet, definitely going to kill him. We'll do a basic over here on Royal Guard, and then this is it. So we've got 52 stacks of Emperor's Trap. That is a lot of bonus offense. What is that? 10 is 80%, so it's 400% additional offense. There's 2 debuffs here, which means when we use the Cull now, that's 100% additional damage, and provided we crit, it should do good damage. 639,000 is pretty decent. After that, we're just left with Royal Guard. Now, you might find yourself in a position where you can't quite kill Royal Guard. If that happens, don't worry, at least it's an easy cleanup, but it shouldn't be the case. Let's just go round here, back into Merciless Massacre. Let's hopefully get rid of him, and there we go. Victory. Victory. Now, that particular setup, guys, will work against many, many variants. The only thing it absolutely will not work against is something that has got Canderous. If Canderous is in the enemy team, like I've said before, he's gaining 80% additional TM, which basically means he's got 1,000 speed minimum. So essentially what will happen is Lord Vader will crush, then Maul will take his first bonus turn, and then Canderous will take his turn, triggering Maul's second lot of Frenzy, and he'll get 5 attacks off, and he'll likely kill someone in your team, most likely Piet, and then you simply cannot get that counter rolling. It will outspeed other unallied Dark Force users, such as any of the Inquisitorius. Make sure you do your calculations correctly. If you have to, take in Watt. That extra 15% turn meter will really skyrocket your speed. This also will not work with setups where the enemy team is using Watt, because that bonus turn triggers all the Frenzy setups from Maul, and he'll likely kill one of your units. Don't use it against Watt setups or Canderous setups. Next up, we're going to be talking about the Tarkin Cheese setup. Yeah, that one. Okay, so the principle of the Tarkin Cheese setup is very, very similar. We're just trying to stack up all the stacks of Emperor's Trap to get one big hit off on Lord Vader. Couple of things to consider. There's no way we can outpace Maul, so we have to try and think outside the box. Secondly, we also have to think about how do we actually survive with Tarkin and Piet both alive when he starts his turns. So, we're going in with EP lead. EP lead is an absolute necessity because he's passing infinite turn meter essentially to our boy Tarkin. Tarkin obviously needs to have the cooldown decreased Datacron active, and you need to have Piet for the stacks of Emperor stack. After that, we need to have Wat in order to give a means of cleansing our Tarkin so that he's not dazed, and then we need some form of taunting tank at the start. Now, I personally prefer to actually use GK in this setup, and that's because it actually starts Maul with 5 stacks of Anguish, and that means that he will immediately use his frenzy attacks out of the gate. Now, there is a bit of RNG here. For example, he will have his first opening attack, which can increase the cooldowns of your abilities. If that happens to land on our boy Tarkin, then this counter falls down. If it hits anybody else, you should be absolutely fine. So here's some footage of me actually using the Tarkin Cheese. EP Vader lead, Tarkin, Piet, and GK. Now, we're going to put the tank tech on GK immediately to get him taunting. As you can see, Maul will immediately go into his 5 stacks. He'll focus on GK, GK will die after the 5th hit, and then you will be able to get free. Because GK's died, we've still got tank tech available. So we're going to go ahead and place the marked on Palpatine to make sure that the enemy goes after Palpatine, and then you go ahead and put the tank's tech on Tarkin. After that, we essentially have unlimited turn meter on our Tarkin. He can continually use his potency up ability, targeting all the enemies here, and we can just control the battle the entire way. They don't even get a look in. Just hit it on auto, and what I'd recommend you do is just sit back, wait, and yeah, just wait for the big bop. There are a few things to consider with this one. You don't have to use GK. I just like it because it stops the enemy from getting 1 extra attack off. Because Maul uses up 1 stack of his frenzy just going into Seething Rage. You have to make sure that your Kenobi, if you are using him in this manner, is tanky enough to survive all 5 hits from Maul's Seething Rage ability. That means you need to mod him for max amounts of protection and health, essentially. Just stack it up as fast as you can, as high as you can. Obviously, this does mean you draw away your GK tank from one of your other teams, like your JMK or your Padme, or wherever he happens to be, but ultimately, if you can get this reliably to work, then it's not so bad. Apart from that, yes, there is an element of RNG. If the enemy does happen to increase the cooldowns on your Tarkin, this counter is dead in the water, completely out the gate. If he hits Palpatine, it's fine. If he hits Piet, it can still be okay. Yeah, just go for it. The other thing that there is an issue with this particular counter is that we're incredibly dependent on the hit landing. So if your Lord Vader happens to have a Datacron with a high level of dodge, then you're kind of rolling the dice here on the ultimate. See, when Tarkin comes down and calls down his special, that can still miss. It's not avoidable. It's not unavoidable, apologies. And you only have 1 chance to do it. Because you need to have around about 350 plus stacks of Emperor's Trap in order to actually one-shot any sort of Lord Vader that you're looking at, you've only got 1 opportunity to drop that bomb. Otherwise, you're just done. So yeah, I wouldn't recommend using this one against anything that you don't think you can survive the opening barrage. If they've got too many additional units on the enemy team that have got that unaligned Darkside Force user tag so that they can actually have many characters attack your team all at once and kill off a unit before you get your go. Or if they've got particularly high dodge chance on their Datacron. It's fun. It's an entertaining counter, I will give it that, but it's not without its issues. Let's also face it, guys, the game is not at its most stable at this point. It's not particularly well optimized, I feel, and as you can see, there's just a little bit of issues going on with the game, trying to calculate all that stacking offense that we're giving to our Piet here. There is a chance that this will fall on its face and crash your game when you try to do it. If that's a risk you're willing to take, and if you're willing to split your teams this way, then potentially this is a team that you can use. However, I would incredibly recommend not using it against too strong of a team, because I don't think that the success ratio is actually there. Particularly if their Maul is far too powerful, or if they've got multiple stacks of Darkside Aligned Force users, it can really mess up your day. Nevertheless, it is fun to watch, I will be honest. So yeah, these are the only 2 non-GL counters I know of that are available right now. We will discuss some of the GL counters as well, because I think it's important to have it known, just in case you happen to have the counter available and you're willing to sacrifice a little bit on your defense in order to clear through the Lord Vader. So we're coming up to the point here where we drop the bomb. This is complete overkill, guys. You don't actually need to go all the way here, but just for safety reasons, I would recommend you going over 350 stacks of Emperor's Trap, and then hoping for the best, really. Hoping for the best is all we really have. So I'm not sure where I go. I think I go to the last 30 seconds here. 376 stacks. We drop the bomb and bloop. What is that? 5.2 million damage we just did on Lord Vader. Delicious. Alright guys, let's go and talk about the Ray counter. This one is the most reliable, dependable, successful, so good in fact, you can just go in and hit auto and you will win 9 times out of 10. The only thing that can mess you up is if Maul goes out and takes out your dash. So, the team is Ray lead, you throw in dash, you throw in the likes of Bam, you throw in Cat, and then +1 unit of your choice. You can choose the new Ben Solo, you can choose the likes of Hermit Yoda, you could probably even choose the likes of Watt. But for this instance, we're just going to go ahead and use Hermit Yoda. Okay guys, so yes, this setup is incredibly expensive because it uses Commander Ahsoka Tano here. It is doable without her, but not nearly as reliable. So we need to have Bam in there. Whistling Birds really helps. Cat in there obviously increases the damage of your team exponentially, and we've got Dash in there to take out the entire enemy team. Like I said, this works against any setup that we want to go against. What we do is we start off with the AoE, which is lovely. Just basic here. Alrighty. Just another basic. And then we'll put the damage immunity on our Dash. That will stop him from immediately dying. And we get rid of Royal Guard. And then another AoE. And they're basically all dead. Let's make sure to get rid of Maul. And then we can pass back over to Dash again. And it's just Lord Vader now. Let's go into Whistling Birds. Let's put some extra offense over on our Ray. He's hit his ultimate. Normally this is a bit of an issue when he hits ultimate because, you know, we're getting ability blocked all over. But for us, not so bad. Go into our own ultimate stance. Drop the Whistling Birds on him. And then drop our ultimate. Game over. And that is how it will go 9 times out of 10. There is an occasion where he somehow manages to kill your Dash too quickly, and that causes some issues, because without Dash you can't kill the rest of the team. But it will work against any single Lord Vader comp. It is reliable. If you want a surefire way, that's your team. And that's going to about do it for now on these particular counters, guys. Those are the most common. Of course, there is Fennec with Bam. I feel like the viability of that one now has dropped off a bit because we've lost the Datacron that really helps that really hone in with the constant damage immunity going on, so I wouldn't like to recommend it at this point. Now, I will say that Fennec is still very good at a cleanup of Lord Vader, particularly if it's just a lone Lord Vader. A Fennec Bam setup is certainly very, very powerful there, so use it at your own discretion. SLKR with Daka, Zombie, Watt, and Armorer can also counter Lord Vader's, but I would again stress that it's not entirely reliable. There are situations where you will lose that, and the banners for it are terrible, because it's just going to be SLKR that's left alive at the end. This was a long recording process and an even longer editing process, guys, so pretty please, could you just hit that like button and consider subscribing to your boy Scribe. And until the next video, peace out.
Just giving a quick shout out to my patrons. I appreciate each and every single one of you, and without your support, I wouldn't be doing this today. Thanks so much.